All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that quietly sneaks up on almost all of us at some point in our professional lives. We're looking at the hidden, compounding costs of career complacency. It's a concept I like to call the skill debt trap. And hey, as we go through these ideas today, you might just recognize a little bit of your own career in this story. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The myth of eventually, a competent worker. So let's kick things off with a story. We're talking about a help desk guy who's been at his job for 5 years. Now, before we jump to any conclusions here, I want to make it absolutely clear he is neither lazy nor incapable. We usually get this part wrong, but honestly, he's really, really good at his job. He shows up every day, he's incredibly reliable, and he handles his current responsibilities perfectly. His performance reviews are probably stellar. He's that guy who actually remembers to check if the router is plugged in before tearing apart the server, you know? Just the absolute definition of a solid, dependable employee. I mean, his daily competence is just off the charts. He can walk someone through a frustrating printer issue in 90 seconds flat. He knows every single weird quirk of the company's ticketing system, and because he's so dependable, half the office literally asks for him by name when something breaks. He is a local hero in his department, and he's super comfortable in his day-to-day routine. But there's a catch. For all 5 of those years, he's been telling himself the exact same thing. I'll pick up the newer stuff once things slow down a bit. I mean, how many times have we all said that? We convince ourselves that learning is super important, but it's a tomorrow problem. We'll get to it next month or when this current project is finally over.
Which brings us to Section 2, Understanding Technical Debt.
To really grasp what happens when we put off learning, we're going to borrow a brilliant concept from the software engineering world. It's called technical debt. It's what happens when you skip a proper, comprehensive code fix because, well, a quick shortcut works perfectly fine for now. It's a Band-Aid, and the thing about Band-Aids, they actually work. For a little while anyway. The system keeps running, and on the surface, everything looks totally fine.
But here's the kicker, the inevitable consequence. Eventually, all those little shortcuts pile up. The code gets so incredibly messy and tangled underneath that one day, a developer goes in to make what should be a tiny, simple update, and boom, a small change takes 3 days instead of 3 hours. Why? Because the code now resembles a giant plate of digital spaghetti. The foundation is fragile, and the debt has finally come due. And that leads us to Section 3, the skill debt trap. This whole software problem brilliantly illustrates the main point of our explainer, because human skills work the exact same way. We don't usually think about our own abilities as having debt, but the parallels are absolutely there. Every single year you don't touch the new stuff you know you should be learning, you aren't just staying flat. You might think you're maintaining the status quo, but you're actually accumulating skill debt. That gap between what you currently know and what the market expects, it doesn't just sit there. It actively grows, quietly, right in the background. Which brings us to a kind of harsh but necessary reality. Not learning is a decision too, even when it doesn't feel like one. By choosing, day in and day out, to stay in his comfort zone and just sharpen what he already knew, our help desk guy actively chose not to build new skills. And that choice compounded over time, exactly the same way that dedicating time to learning would have compounded in a positive direction. This takes us right into Section 4, the invisible cost of comforts. The absolutely crucial point here is that while he was busy being incredibly competent at the things he already knew, the outside world didn't just freeze in place. The market didn't wait for him to be ready. Look at how this progresses. In year 1, his manual, hands-on work earned him tons of credit and praise. But fast forward to year 3, and suddenly cloud technology goes from being a nice-to-have option to totally expected. And by year 5, a massive chunk of that manual work that made him a star employee is entirely automated away. The gap between his knowledge and the industry standard widened while he was busy doing a fantastic job at yesterday's tasks. It all boils down to this really stark truth. The bar moved, and he didn't move with it. His skills from year 1 haven't literally vanished into thin air, but they are suddenly worth significantly less on the open market. He didn't get worse at his job, right? The definition of the job simply evolved right past him. I absolutely love this quote from our source material today. Comfort doesn't send an invoice. I mean, just think about that for a second. There is no dramatic moment where someone taps you on the shoulder at your desk and hands you a bill saying, hey, here is exactly what staying comfortable just cost you this month. It's completely invisible in the moment. Instead, those costs are delayed, and they show up much later in some highly frustrating ways. It hits you when you're browsing job postings and realize you don't even qualify for the roles you thought were your next logical step.
It shows up during performance reviews when your manager just can't justify giving you a significant raise. Or, maybe the absolute most painful one, it shows up when you have to sit back and watch someone who is only 2 years into their career snatch up the promotion you wanted simply because their tooling and software knowledge is sharper and more current than yours.
This brings us to our final part, Section 5, Decide on Purpose. The core issue here isn't necessarily just staying still. The real danger is staying still without ever admitting to yourself that that is exactly what you're doing. We really have to ask ourselves this honestly. If "I'll get to it eventually" has been your professional strategy for a while now, is that actually a concrete plan? Or is it just a psychological shield? A comforting lie we tell ourselves so we don't have to face that awful feeling of falling behind. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with today. Decide on purpose, whatever you pick. If you want to just coast for a bit because life is crazy right now, that is completely fine, but own that choice. Just don't hide behind the myth of eventually, because the market is always moving, and every single day you don't actively choose to learn, you are quietly taking on debt. So what's it going to be? Are you investing in your future skills, or are you just comfortably paying interest on the past?